Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. He's rocking the white Georgia shirt. Go Dogs. Alabama's going to beat them week 3, I believe, but go Dogs, and you can't teach that. Bada boom. Man, the people in the room. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing really good, Tanner, as you can tell from the background here. And just as you know, because I've told you, I am back home. I had a very nice time. I was down in Georgia visiting my girlfriend's family. And she is a, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th generation UGA student. So naturally, we went to UGA, walked around the campus. It was my first time being there. And I got to say, I'm not breaking news here to most people. That is a gorgeous campus. I mean, seriously, it was beautiful. I loved every inch of it. The coolest part to me, Tanner, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, I'm sure it'll make you want to go out there and play some football. The stadium, which obviously you've seen, Sanford Stadium on TV and everything. Do you actually know where it's located?
No.
It is in literally the middle of campus. The only thing that separates it from the sidewalk going down the street in the middle of campus is a little 2-foot fence. You just go right there. You give them your ticket. You walk in, and it's 93,000 seats around you. And another cool part of it is the stadium goes down. It's like a bowl. So even though there was no game going on there, I could feel the atmosphere and how electric it must be on game day. And honestly, I really want to go to a game there now.
Yeah, I would love to go to any SEC game, especially week 3 when Georgia comes to Alabama in Tuscaloosa and they absolutely steamroll them and go to the college football playoff. That's what's going to happen, Grant.
It probably will. One thing that it did amaze me about that stadium, by the way, no surprise here. We know that in like high schools in Texas and colleges as well. And then SEC stadiums are the biggest stadiums we have in America. I went to Virginia Tech. We sat 65,000 people in ours. That's very normal. Georgia's Sanford Stadium sat 93,000. Virginia Tech Stadium looks substantially bigger. That's what surprised me so much, because we've got the big architecture and everything like that, and columns. This it's like a bubble. It's a bowl. You go down. There's seats everywhere. No section is really that much taller than the other. And then there's just the press box, the jumbotron, and that's it. Like, it was very simple. But because of that, it allowed them to pack more of the atmosphere into the stadium, I think.
So when was it built? Let's see.
Well, originally, it's been there for 100 years. I'm sure they've renovated.
So all those old stadiums, so like you look at the Yale Bowl, which is my biggest comparison in Connecticut. Obviously, it's really flat, but it holds 80,000 people. But it's just super flat and long out. Like, if you're in the top row, you're not that high, but you're pretty far away from where the football is actually taking place.
Yeah, and honestly, seeing the hedges in person was really cool too. It was a very nice touch. It looked very classy. But yeah, I really want to go to a game there. Georgia's schedule, by the way, I know people have been talking about Florida's schedule, and with good reason. I mean, Florida has probably the toughest schedule in the history of college football. Georgia's schedule is really not that far off. The only difference is they don't play Georgia. They play Florida. Florida plays Georgia. If the roles were reversed somehow, like if Georgia had to play, the number 2, number 3 team, whoever it might be, their schedule will be probably tied for the toughest in the whole country.
Georgia's got a brutal schedule, like absolutely brutal. I mean, you open up against Clemson. They're going to smoke Clemson. They're a 14-point favorite at home, but
it's no easy game though.
It's not an easy game week 1 now, especially good thing it's in Georgia, though. You got to go to Kentucky. Kentucky's going to be terrible. Alabama at home. Alabama on the road for Georgia is going to be very, very tough. Then you got to go to Texas as well. And then you got to go to Ole Miss as well. Like, it's not easy. It's a tough schedule. I think Georgia's going to be good, but don't be surprised if they don't make the SEC championship game, because 1 to 2 losses could really throw off your chances of getting in with all these extra teams now.
Yeah, when I was down there, I was just talking to people. We were, first of all, that did come up. Obviously, the people I was talking to were rooting for Georgia, and they're a little biased and expected them to go undefeated. And honestly, if I had to put my money down, yes or no undefeated, I would probably go yes. But getting back to what I was saying here, we were talking about Florida. If Florida goes 8-4, they deserve to be in the college football playoff. 6-6 is arguably a successful season there. Like, I don't I know Billy Napier's on the hot seat and everything, but if Florida goes 5-7, 4-8, that should be expected. I don't know if that's grounds to fire him. I don't know if you have their schedule up or not, but if you do,
Yeah.
like, read it off.
Florida is going to lose 6 straight games, then. I'm afraid for Florida's health in the final 6 games of the season. The beginning's pretty easy. Miami at home, they're a favorite. Miami's 19th ranked team in the nation. They'll beat Miami. The ACC's trash. Sanford, they'll beat.
That's still a tough game, though. Miami has a great shot there.
No, they got a good shot to win that game in the swamp. Sanford, they're going to beat Texas A&M at home in the swamp. 20th ranked Texas A&M. I think they could win that game. Could. Mississippi State on the road. You're going to lose to Mississippi State with the Cowbells at noon kickoff. UCF, they'll beat. And then this is where it gets really tough. So you realistically, if you're 5-0, which you're not going to be 5-0, you're probably 4-1 best case, probably 3-2 in those first 5. Then you got to play Tennessee on the road, Kentucky at home. They'll win that one. Then you go Georgia on the road, Texas on the road, LSU at home, Ole Miss at home, Florida State on the road. And Florida State's trash too. That's another thing. Florida State's terrible. They could beat Florida State now that we know Florida State is trash. So that's an extra win on their win schedule.
Georgia Tech, I don't know what your thoughts on them were, but I picked them to win that game. They're a very underrated team going into this year, and you saw some of it right there. Granted, does look like Florida State was also a little bit overrated, but Brent Key's been pulling the strings down there. Georgia Tech is going to be a dangerous team here. And what was most interesting for me about that particular game, I know we're way off on a tangent here, but it was the ACC needs Florida State to be good, right? Because they need something to give them some life to help them stick around. But then at the same time, they need the lower teams, which recently have been your UVAs, Dukes, and Georgia Tech, to be good. So while that game was playing out, I was thinking, does the ACC itself want Georgia Tech to win? Do they want Florida State to win? I think best case is Florida State rebounds from that loss, only loses, one game or maybe even wins out from this point on, while Georgia Tech is also an improved team.
Florida State was terrible. DJ Uyunglele was terrible. I didn't pick Georgia Tech to win the game. I took Georgia Tech to cover in the game. And then as it was going on, the first drive, I was like, okay, Florida State's pretty good because they just ran all over them. And then they settled in. They couldn't do anything on offense. Like DJ Uyunglele reminds me of Jalen Hurts. He shows absolutely no emotion on the sideline. Jalen Hurts a good quarterback, but they kind of like don't have that dog in them right now, at least from what we saw from Jalen Hurts last year to what we saw from DJ Uyunglele on Saturday. Georgia Tech's a good football team. They're very physical, but that was a game that Florida State pretty much gave away, especially how they came out in that first drive.
Yeah, I agree. And that response from Georgia Tech as well was just, that set the tone. That said, yeah, we're not, if we do lose, it's going to be a dogfight. We're here to play.
And also, Florida State's kicker hit like a 52-yarder and a 57-yarder, I think.
Yeah, and Georgia Tech's missed one, right? Was it Georgia Tech or Florida State who missed one right before half?
Georgia Tech missed one. Yeah, they missed one right before. So it might have even been more of a blowout in this game. But, I know it came down to the wire. But if Florida State misses those field goals and Georgia Tech can go down and convert, 50-something-yard field goals are not easy in college football. You never know what could happen in that game. Georgia Tech won that one outright by a landslide. I know it was only a 3-point game on the scoreboard or whatever it was, but they beat them into the ground.
I'm just happy football's back. That's all I know. It's been too long.
Yep, football is back, and that's why we are talking about every division winner in the NFL today. We're going to start with the AFC. Well, not every division winner in the AFC. We're going to start with the AFC East today. You got the Bills, the Jets, the Patriots, and the Dolphins. The Jets are the favorite right now currently on FanDuel Sportsbook. Bills follow them, and then it goes Dolphins and Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots are not going to do anything this season. This comes down to the top 3 teams, maybe even the top 2 teams. We'll see based on the odds. But Grant, who do you have in the AFC East?
So I want to start by saying this division is competitive because if I'm looking at the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins, I think they're all, for the most part, right there with one another. But I have questions about all of these teams. I don't think any of these teams is going to run away with this. I don't see any team here winning 12 games. 11's possible, 10 maybe even be the most likely route. For me, it's about which team can get there, because if we're setting the over-under for all of these teams, don't know where you have it. For me personally, I have I'd probably put the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins all at 9.5. And it's just going to be which one of them does get to 10. Ultimately, I have the most faith in the Buffalo Bills. You're going to give the season purely to Josh Allen for the most part. And there's going to be risk. There is implied risk in that. He's going to probably lead the league in turnovers because that's what he's done the last few years. But you can live with that when he's giving you 50 total touchdowns in a season. He's thrown for 35, running for 15, whatever he's doing. His numbers might be even better this year, or at least they might be more. There might be more volume behind them because you're not going to run the ball as much. You're not going to be able to with the loss of Stephon Diggs. Defenses don't have to honor him on the outside. And also, I just don't think they're going to want to lead the league in rushing attempts like they did down the stretch last season. So, big questions on the defense with Matt Milano being gone, and obviously the loss of Tre'Davious White. Von Miller is not in a good stage of his career. Tremaine Edmonds was gone a couple of years ago. Changes on the offensive side of the ball, I get that. But I still like the Bills with Josh Allen because it is a quarterback's league. With the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, 40 years old, coming off of a torn Achilles. Everybody loves to say they have a great offense. I say where their offensive line is horrible. The head coach is horrible. Their offensive coordinator is horrible. They have a good player in Garrett Wilson, but aside from that, they don't have a tight end. Breece Hall is top half of the league, I guess. Mike Williams is always injured. I just don't see the appeal with them. And then the Dolphins, simply put, they just got to beat winning teams. They have not been able to do that. They haven't been able to win on the road. They haven't been able to win when there's a slight breeze outside. So all these teams got serious question marks, but I'd put my money on the Bills.
Yeah, this is easy. Take the Bills here because when the Dolphins have to go play Buffalo in Buffalo, if there is a winter game there, it's not going to be easy. Same thing with the Jets. So the Dolphins having to go north is not easy for them. The New York Jets with Aaron Rodgers, you can't count on a 40-year-old coming off an Achilles surgery to be good. He hasn't thrown a touchdown in how long? Isn't it like a couple of years now?
Well, yeah, because it's been however long since last season, and then he essentially didn't play last season.
Yeah, so you can't count on that guy to be a favorite in the division. Every year, the Jets have high hopes every single season. There's always somebody that's going to be like, the Jets are going to be a solid football team this year, and they always fall apart. So are they due for a bounce back? Maybe, but I just can't count on them, especially as the favorite in the division. Buffalo has the best quarterback with Josh Allen. Simple. You can't get the high explosive plays without the turnovers for him. He needs to learn how to hold on to the ball late in games when he doesn't need to force it down the field, and he needs to make the correct reads in those situations. But when you're playing, when you leash Josh Allen and you don't let him go out and play his style of football, it's going to result in losing games because when he's going crazy and he's doing his thing, that's going to result in wins there. So I would take Buffalo. Best quarterback in this division by far is Josh Allen, and the defense without Matt Milano, that's a huge loss, but they found ways to overcome it last year too. So it's really business as usual for them based on last season.
Yeah. And just back to the Jets here, because again, they are the favorites and they're the team that everybody's pointing to. I want to make this very clear. Their defense is great. Last year I had this stat that I think of the last 5 seasons, or the 5 preceding seasons, bit of a tongue twister there. Less than half of top 10 defenses repeated as top 10 defenses. I put that out there to say that I don't know if you can trust the Jets. They're a young team. You don't know how consistent they're going to be. They proved their point last year. Defense was great 2 years ago. Defense was great last year, despite terrible quarterback play. With improved quarterback play, they get more time on the sideline. They should be even better. So I have no quarrels with the defense. For me, what are the 2 most positions in the entire National Football League? Quarterback and head coach. For me personally, I don't know where you put it. I put it there. And then honestly, what's number 3? There's a chance it's pass rusher or it's offensive line. What are the Jets' 3 biggest weaknesses? Quarterback, or at least question marks. Quarterback, head coach, offensive line. I just don't know how you can trust this team. Again, 40 years old, coming off of a torn Achilles, has not thrown for 300 yards in 24 games. Think to his last year in Green Bay. We're thinking of Aaron Rodgers as this all-time quarterback and a guy who won back-to-back MVPs not too long ago. His last full season in Green Bay, he was 26th in QBR. His receivers now are worse than the ones he had there. His head coach is worse than the one he had. His offensive line is worse than the one he had. Why is he due for a Super Bowl year? I think there is a better chance Aaron Rodgers is a bottom half quarterback than a top half quarterback. I'm not saying it's impossible he doesn't play well, but I think it's more likely he doesn't than he does.
He may get hurt too. He's fragile. You're 40 years old, coming off Achilles, and you play at MetLife Stadium too. So it just doesn't play into a successful season for him, I don't think. And if they have an offense, great. They really should focus on their backup quarterback, though. I think they should have drafted somebody and paid attention to that position because you're going to need it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't get the Jets hype. I'm out on them. And the Dolphins is really just, they should win the division. If we're being honest, they should. But they've just proven so far that they can't beat winning teams and they can't win cold games. So until they do, it's the jury's out on them until they do.
Now, a team with a lot of value moving to the AFC South, I think, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. For plus 270 versus plus 105 with these teams, I mean, I think Houston had a fantastic year with CJ Stroud last season. They're definitely the most well-rounded team in the division, but they could be due for a little regression as well. When you're looking at the Jaguars, I think they can only go up, right? Where they were last year in the division to how they finished the season. You have Trevor Lawrence, who just got the contract, and Trevor Lawrence is regarded as one of the greatest quarterback prospects of this generation. It hasn't necessarily resulted in that, but he's still a solid quarterback, and if he figures it out, they're going to be good on offense. You got Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Evan Ingram. Ingram's a fantastic tight end. You got a decent offensive line there. You have a decent defense as well, but they've really focused on, and you got a good head coach. So when you're looking at all this put together, I don't think they should be plus 270 compared to the Houston Texans, who deserve to be favored in the division. But considering this heavy of a favorite, I'm not going to say it's warranted.
Yes. So my pick as far as who do I think will win the division, it is the Houston Texans. But my favorite bet, I'm literally the same standpoint as you. I'm not betting plus 105 on Houston here. I understand all of the promising signs, but progress is not linear in sports, especially in the NFL. The Texans made this great run last year. They won 10 games. They could win 9 games. And you know what? They're still ahead of schedule. Or if they win 10 games again, they're still ahead of schedule. But expecting them to make this leap from literally nobody, team that had the second pick in the draft, to Super Bowl team, less than 2 years later, it usually does not happen that fast. People forget the Jaguars were 8-3 last year. They were dominating the AFC South. That's despite Trevor Lawrence having some fumbling issues, especially in the red zone, inefficiencies down there. And then he gets injured and they pretty much lose all the remainder of their games. If he stays healthy, that team probably wins 11, 12, maybe even 13 games. So the Jaguars are a good bet here. I think their roster got worse in the offseason, which is the concern, but they've got basically, if they just fix up their secondary, because they allowed the second most passing yards per game, if they can do that, and Brian Thomas Jr. turns out to be a player, looks like he is going to be, him and Trevor Lawrence show a nice connection, yeah, Jacksonville can absolutely win 10 plus games and challenge for the division title.
So value pick, you got to take them. I can't see taking Houston for plus 105. And especially, we've seen quarterbacks slump in their second season. We've seen a lot of that. I'm not saying it's going to happen with CJ Stroud, but the second year slump, the sophomore slump for a quarterback, it's very common because it's really hard to outdo what you did as a rookie, especially when teams now figure you out. They've watched film on you. They know how to play you. We have film on CJ Stroud now. I'm not saying he's going to have a regression this season, but teams know how to play him a little more than they did the year before, and he has to continue to adapt and adjust. And I think he's the player to do it, but don't be surprised that this team's not as good as they were last year.
And also, you do have to think from the perspective of he went in there last year knowing that he was the man, but first of all, he didn't have to prove that he was the man. And second of all, he didn't really have to live up to anything. This year, the team has recognized we have CJ Stroud here. He's a guy we believe can get us to a Super Bowl or at least a conference championship. Well, now we're going to go bring in a huge personality and a huge ego in Stephon Diggs. We're going to bring in somebody who's made Pro Bowls in Joe Mixon. We're going to bring in Danielle Hunter. These are mouths to feed. And, CJ Stroud is a good quarterback, like I said, but if Stephon Diggs starts making a stink on the sidelines like he did in Buffalo, especially we saw how well Tank Dell played before he got injured. We saw the connection that Stroud had with Nico Collins. Is Stephon Diggs wide receiver 2? Is he wide receiver 3? If that happens, how does the team handle that? How do they handle feeling like they need to give more carries to Joe Mixon? There's a lot of questions that still have to be answered here that we honestly can't really even predict until we see it happen.
No, definitely not. Let's move to the AFC West here. We shouldn't spend much time on this. There's not much to talk about here. Kansas City minus 270. Don't play it, but the Chiefs are going to decide how many games they want to win this division by. Nobody stands a chance against them. The Chargers could be okay. They're not going to challenge the Chiefs. The Raiders have Gardner Minshew playing quarterback. I love Max Crosby. I love the Raiders, but they have Gardner Minshew playing quarterback. And then the Broncos, they might go over their win total. They're still not going to be good.
I'm still out on the Broncos. I understand they've had a very good preseason. Believe they're the highest scoring preseason team, but it's the preseason. I was actually having this debate kind of with myself, honestly. I understand what the Broncos are doing. They're trying to build some sort of momentum, even though everyone knows the preseason doesn't matter. I think they want to give some sort of false confidence to Bo Nix and those guys and have them go into the season strong. Then you've got a team like the Commanders and the Patriots who really have not shown much interest in winning at all. The Bears are on the Broncos side. Like, they've got young teams, rookie quarterbacks. We're going to try to win the preseason games. Patriots, Commanders have been on the other side of, we don't really care. We're just going to save our guys. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The Chiefs are going to win this division, like you said, unless Patrick Mahomes gets hurt or something remarkable happens in Los Angeles. This should belong to the Chiefs. My biggest question, honestly, like the thing I'm going to be watching the most is, what are the Chargers going to be? Because Jim Harbaugh has the highest winning percentage amongst all active NFL coaches. Granted, he's been out of the league for a while, but he did just win a national championship at Michigan. So we know it's a guy who knows how to win. There's been a huge overhaul on the roster. He's a defensive guy. That defense has so much talent. But in the preseason, the team looked pretty horrific. They're the wild card, and I want to see what they do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm excited to watch them play. The Chiefs are the favorite to win the division. Minus 270 is probably right because nobody's going to keep up with Patrick Mahomes right now, especially after Darnell Doucette, whatever his name is, came out and said,
I think it was Daryl. I don't know.
Darnell, flag football guy. That's what he is.
Did you watch his highlights?
Yeah, he can't throw. I mean, he can throw, but the motion's really weird. He throws darts.
The motion is crazy. It's so extended to the side.
But he throws darts. Like, he is pretty good. Just 5'7". You can't say you're smarter than an NFL player.
No, you can't. You can't say you're smarter if you're not facing. I understand there is a blitzer, but if you don't have guys coming at you, then there's. We talked about on the last episode, he doesn't even have to set the protection. That right there, you'll know as a former offensive lineman, that takes incredible IQ to be able to pick apart the disguises and get your blockers where you need them and everything. And that he doesn't even have to worry about that.
No, put him in Madden and see what happens. Like, make his build in Madden and see if he can even do it there in Sim.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see here. We got the AFC North. This is probably going to be the best division in football, one of the best divisions. It's going to be probably the most competitive race, I think, with the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not very high on the Cleveland Browns with Deshaun Watson. He just hasn't really recovered since the massages. Just hasn't been that good. I think you can get some upside from him, but overall, this Browns team, I think they have a ceiling, and it's not a ceiling high enough to win this division. Pittsburgh Steelers, I believe their odds were a little better than plus 750 not too long ago. And then we saw that both their starting quarterbacks couldn't even find a way to score. They have not named a starting quarterback yet either. I don't believe.
Have the Patriots?
No, today's Black Monday, not Black Monday, but today's basically Black Monday for people getting cut. So once the dudes get cut, then I imagine they name starters.
I know those are the two teams that a few days ago had not named them. I didn't know if the Patriots did, but those are the last two now.
No, so you're going to start Russell Wilson most likely. Plus 750 seems right. I think if the Steelers win 9 games, that's a huge win. I don't know if they'll even get to 9 games this year because of their quarterback play, even though it was worse with Kenny Pickett last year. So we have to factor that in. However, I'm going to be on the Cincinnati Bengals to win this division. They have Joe Burrow. He is joke cool. He's calm, collected. Lamar and the Ravens are fantastic. A lot of people are saying this could be the Super Bowl year, but I think in the big games, I trust the Bengals a little bit more. And Cincinnati does have a really good team. You have a good receiving room. You have a solid defense there, and they're good enough to beat the Ravens in this division.
Yeah, I've got questions about the Ravens, man. Obviously, Lamar Jackson in the regular season and the postseason is a different player. Let's set that aside because we're not even talking about the postseason right now. We're talking about basically who gets the most wins in the regular season. The weakness of the Ravens was not running the football. They were the best team in the league when it came to running the football. So I understand that Derrick Henry as a player is an upgrade on the players they had in that room, but is it an upgrade for the offense overall? Maybe it makes them a little more efficient in the red zone, but I don't see this as a transformative move. Much the same way, I don't see Saquon Barkley being a huge deal to the Eagles. The bigger deal for me is what the Eagles did to their secondary, because that was an actual weakness of the team. So looking at this Baltimore team, I mean, yes, they did make that big move, but their offensive line got worse. They lost Geno Stone, who gave them 6 or 7 interceptions last year. They lost Patrick Queen, who was first team All-Pro, I believe, Pro Bowl linebacker. You lost your defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald. You lost some guys on the defensive front. A lot of losses there, very few upgrades. And like I said, the one big upgrade, I don't think changes the complexion of the team. So I think this is also a team that, by the way, should finally understand that our regular season success does not match our postseason success or lack thereof. We need to take a page out of the Chiefs book and start playing the long game. You know, we don't need to go 13-4, 14-3, 15-2. We need to go 10-7, 11-6, but build the right habits, get the people in the right positions, and be ready to go on a run to the postseason. So I'm with you. I have questions about the Ravens here. My pick is going to be the Bengals. I tell you what, if Joe Burrow gets injured again, it's another long-term injury, 8+ weeks, I will be out on them probably for a long time, for a very long time, because through half of his professional career, or through 4 seasons, he's been injured for half of them. It's the biggest question mark there, but he is the second best quarterback in the league when healthy. I think you do have to give him the benefit of the doubt there. The Steelers, they'll find their way to 8 or 9 wins, no matter if their kicker is playing quarterback, but Justin Fields and Russell Wilson don't seem like they're capable of adding very much. And then the Cleveland Browns, as good as they were, you know, I said last year they were a Super Bowl team everywhere except for the quarterback position. Doesn't matter. If you don't have the quarterback, you can't win in this league. So, yeah, I got the Bengals there, probably the Ravens in second.
They're better with Flacco. They were better with Flacco than they were with Deshaun.
You know, so when I was down in Georgia, I was actually right where Deshaun, I was staying right next to his high school where he played football, right next to his house. We went to a diner. There were signed Deshaun Watson high school, college, and Texans jerseys up on the wall.
Any massage parlors?
There was I think there was one somewhere in the town. I did not investigate if he frequented it during his time there.
He frequented a lot of them, Grant.
Yeah, that's probably why he had to leave. There weren't enough options for him there.
I give his girlfriend a lot of credit because I think they like stuck together throughout the entire time.
Yeah, I saw her name somehow recently, and I remember thinking that same thing because she was saying that people have been coming, defaming his character or whatever. And I was just reading this like, has she been there the entire time? Because if so, that's kind of crazy. I would have expected her to have left.
Now, also, I do think the NFL has their priorities a little messed up too. Like Deshaun deserved to be suspended, but like Rashee Rice should be suspended too for literally having NASCAR on the highway. Like I look at that, like Deshaun wasn't killing anybody. He was paying for a, little tug. It's still bad, but like, does he deserve that suspension compared to Rashee Rice, who's not going to be suspended for literally racing on the highway and could have killed many people? No.
Yeah, sexual misconduct, like Tanner said, nothing to be taken lightly. We are not saying that at all, but I'm fully with you. It's not just the NFL as well. It's the NBA. They demonize. Jonte Porter probably deserved to get a lifetime ban. Okay, yeah, I'm not saying he didn't, but you've got players like Miles Bridges, Kevin Porter Jr., abusers, convicted, and some of them aren't even suspended. The priorities are all out of place. It's about what you can work around for them. And at the end of the day, professional sports are a business. So if you're the NFL, you want Rashee Rice on the Chiefs because you want the Chiefs to be good because they are the driving force of the league right now, and they will make you more money. But that doesn't make it right. And I'm with you. If they were being fair, if they were being moral, if they were being ethical, they would completely rework some of these standards for punishment they have across all major professional sports leagues.
The highest penalties should be like domestic abuse, anything where you could kill somebody that you're doing it. Gambling, I guess integrity's got to be up there too. But like Rashee Rice needs to get suspended. You can't be going whatever he was going on the highway. Didn't he have guns in the car too?
I don't know if it was in that incident, but I do believe there was an incident with him. That might have even been during his time at SMU. But yeah, I think there was something with Rashee Rice and guns.
I thought he had a couple incidents, honestly.
He's had 3, I think.
Yeah, like he's had a few. I like Rashee Rice. I like what he can do on the field, but he's got to be suspended. Like it's
I think there was something at SMU that might have been the one with guns. We don't know for sure, by the way. If we're wrong here, we'll apologize. But I think there was something with guns at SMU. I think there was a DUI or something like that. And then there was this last one. And honestly, this is a very sore subject, and, rest in peace to the families. Henry Ruggs is sitting in a jail for racing on a highway. Rashee Rice did the exact same thing. The only difference is he did not happen to hit a car. He still crashed, but he didn't hit somebody else. How is that? That's a very small difference if we look at the grand scheme of things. So how is it the difference between sitting in jail for the next 20 years and business as usual? No punishment whatsoever. Yeah.
If he would have killed somebody, he'd never play in the NFL again. And he was going fast enough to kill somebody. So
he crashed.
Yeah. Like they're coming down so hard on gambling right now, and they should, because that you can't have people gambling on themselves, especially when people are getting involved in the integrity of the game. But you need to come down on that too, because if Henry Ruggs gets the 20-year penalty, prison sentence, and then you got him who doesn't get anything, and the only difference is, well, one guy killed somebody and the other guy didn't, that's a problem.
And you've got to think that, Rashee Rice, I don't know how he feels personally. Maybe this changed him. I really hope it does. But you've got to think whether it's happening or not, you are essentially emboldening these players because they're young 22, 23, 24-year-old multimillionaires who feel like they can now do anything they want.
And they can't. And they can. But, the Chiefs, whether he was suspended or not, they're still going to be good. And that's why they drafted Xavier Worthy too, I think. That helped push, because I think they were anticipating a little bit of a suspension there with Rice.
Yeah, they probably were. And it may still come, but the longer they kick the can down the road, the less likely it seems.
Yeah. It should have come before training camp even started. It should have said you're missing 4 games or 5, whatever game limit you want to make it. It had to come before we enter week 1, which we're almost there.
Yeah, and I'll give Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, credit, even though he and the league do miss on the domestic violence stuff and things like that. When there is something to do, they usually act on it pretty quickly. In the NFL, that's not the case. Deshaun Watson, the whole massage thing and whatever, that started like a year plus before he was actually punished for it. He sat out a year because he had torn his ACL.
Yeah. No, they handled that very poorly too. Because he was like playing, like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I remember that. And then he got
and there was this whole thing of like the Dolphins were going to sign him, and then they didn't know if they could because they didn't want to sign him for him to get suspended.
Yeah. You talk about a great contract, though. Deshaun Watson probably got one of the greatest contracts of all time. Like that, his agent deserves the biggest award possible.
It's crazy that he was a top 5 quarterback in the league, and then this happened. He's just gone. I mean, that player is not coming back.
No, it's not. And he got it all guaranteed money. And the Browns signed him knowing he was going to miss about a season too.
Yeah.
And that's why they gave it all.
If he came back as a top 5 quarterback, honestly, you can probably justify it, but it's just gotten in his head.
I kind of want to know. I don't know if it's out there. Deshaun Watson. So he spent between 35 to 55 million in legal fees. Thank God. I don't know if that's right.
He's got the money for it, but geez.
That's a lot. No matter if you got the money for it, that's a tough check to write. Tough.
I mean, that's like a 20% of his contract.
Yeah, and that's taxes and all that too. Let's see his career earnings real quick. It's turned into a Deshaun Watson. So he's earned $142 million in his career. I don't care how much money you're worth. So you had a 5-year, $230 million deal. You got to figure that's 100 and something. That's what he had about, if he makes that whole thing, it's going to be half in taxes. So he made about 115,000. Then he had to give away 55 million. That hurts.
That does hurt. It
Anyways,
does hurt. But you know what? It hurts me watching Deshaun Watson play football.
It does. We've lost a lot of money on Deshaun Watson. Nick Chubb, though, he was great. Rushing yards over for Nick Chubb was always a fun bet.
Yeah, I agree. I'm ready for football. I said it at the start of the show. I'm saying it at the end of the show. I'm ready for football.
All right, Grant, take us out of here.
Guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Before you get out of here, make sure that you do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, so you never miss out on what we've got coming. Drop some comments. Let us know what we got right and what we got wrong in our NFL division previews. Tanner and I will catch you all on the next episode of Ride the Line.